So, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Fanfiction tapes. Today's episode is going to be a trope roundtable. I'm your host, Maya, and I'm joined by...
Hi, it's Dylan. I'm back again. Finally. It's good to be home.
Welcome back, Dylan. And I'm our producer, Ian.
Today's episode is a personal favorite trope. I put it in a lot of stuff I write, and there was only one bed. For those of you who aren't as engaged in fandom space, or for those of you who are, but less interested in romance, you may be unfamiliar with this trope. And this name is kind of one of the joking monikers it gets. I believe in more published romance, it is referred to as like forced proximity, but the basic function of it is thus. Two characters, or more, but usually just two, they're at a hotel, they're in a house, there's some circumstance which forces them to share a bed. Of course, from there, you can enter with drama and potentially tension to develop deeper platonic or romantic feelings between the characters. Now, tracing the origin of something as simple as forced proximity is really difficult, but it started to gain a lot of popularity in fandom in the late 70s. A long time ago, I know. I found a very interesting article by Sci-Fi, and we'll try and put this link in the description for you to this article, because it's generally very interesting. I enjoyed it. Was a 1979 fanfic written for Star Wars. A non-romantic interaction between Han and Luke. What's interesting to me about this is that its origins it's used more for humor than it is for anything else. Today, a lot of the uses I see for it is it's both humor and a relationship developer. But that was evidently not always the case.
Well, you can also think back, I'm sure Contra will appreciate this, but something like planes, trains, and automobiles, I believe that happens.
I can't say I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that either.
Well, the premise is the guy wants to get home to his family for Christmas, and due to this guy he meets, he can't. So he spends the rest of the film trying to figure out how to get home when, most of transport he can't access. I think it's Thanksgiving or Christmas. It's one of the two. And they have to spend a night in a motel together, him and this dude who's been ruining his, trying to get home to his family. And they have to share a bed, and it is used for comedy rather than any sort of relationship building. It's like, God damn it, why am I stuck with this dude in this bed? It's like the protagonist sort of hit worst moment. I'm stuck in this bed, this dude, and I just want to be home with my family.
Yeah, I guess this is a good transition to what kind of the first thing I want to cover was uses of it we like. I actually struggled to think of any more mainstream fiction that I like that's used it, because by volume, most of what I consume is fan fiction, go figure. And lately, there's been a couple things I've liked. There's a Perkabeth, which is a ship from Percy Jackson, and then Pharmacy, which is a ship from Overwatch, that I've read in the last few weeks. They both, I think, did a good job with it, and other neat things as well. Ian, are you saying anything?
Well, okay.
Sorry, Zoom was saying you were saying, and I thought I might have screwed up my audio again.
So, in terms of like mainstream and like classic literature that uses this trope, I was trying to remember if this comes up in anything like in Shakespeare, and I remembered that it actually comes up as a point of drama in Othello.
Interesting. I think that was the way my high school split up Shakespeare and literature. I think that was one of the ones I did not get to read.
Okay, so the major drama in Othello is that the villain of this show, Iago, is trying to sow jealousy between the titular Othello and his wife Desdemona. And he does this by trying to convince Othello that Desdemona is cheating on him.
Right.
Part of this plot is at one point, Iago shares a bed with another male character, Cassio, and he later reports to Othello that Cassio fondled him in his sleep while murmuring Desdemona's name.
Huh. Interesting. That is... I did not expect to have an example of what's probably going to be considered by a lot of people really classic literature with that.
And it's also an interesting use of it for drama.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot more often it's played for, like, comedy.
Yeah, it's usually played for comedy, and honestly, most of the times I've seen it, it focuses on the interactions between two characters, the ones sharing the bed.
Mm-hmm.
But neither of the two characters whose relationship is being developed here are sharing that bed. I mean, they're presumably sharing a different bed, but not the bed in question.
Yeah.
Something I see leveled a lot at this trope is that it's not super realistic.
Meh.
Which, I mean, for one, it's fiction. It's not supposed to be necessarily realistic, but it is also somewhat realistic. I've had conferences where I've had to travel and hotel bookings have gotten screwy. So, if you're worried about the realism of it, it can absolutely happen.
You can use it in so many different ways, too. You don't have to just have it be, platonic, romantic. There's always the comedy route, as we've just mentioned, and it's always great to do the comedy route. You can get many laughs. But as a tool, it's very usable, is the best I will say. So many different options, and when you find good tools like this, use them. They're so good. And there's also a familiarity when it comes to using a trope like this. And as Maya's mentioned, big fan of this trope. So you put this in your work, Maya's going to instantly love it.
So that's another one for the checklist of things to instantly get Maya to read your work. Lesbians and only one bed.
I'm gonna get roasted by you two for this, but I believe last week I brought up a book by a friend of mine, Riley,
Mm-hmm.
The Fool, the Lover's the Devil.
Yes.
Which also has some elements of And There Was Only One Bed. And the way it's used, I'm not gonna spoiler it, but I do like the way kind of the trope and some of the elements of it are used in unusual ways. That's all I'm gonna say for now. I believe we will have perhaps some more details on that if we have Riley on in the future.
Sounds like I need to read this book.
I think you would enjoy it, yeah.
It would help if I could read. Unfortunately, I'm illiterate. So, Maya, can I ask now, besides for, like, do you have, like, much experience using it, and what is your main reason for using it? Like, why are you...
I have used it a few times, and the reason is that I consider myself something of a comedy writer. It's not the sole focus of what I write, but I do try to implement comedy into it. And There Was Only One Bed is something that can be used for both comedy and character and relationship development, which is great. It's two birds, one stone. God, I believe the last time I used it was I did a fusion between Percy Jackson and Arcane, and I had Kate and Vi have to sleep in the same sleeping bag. I used it for kind of, it's funny, they realized, oh shit, we're out of sleeping bags. And then it also leads to some character development of being, you know what, I hate her a little bit, but I guess I'll just have to share a sleeping bag. I did kind of off-screen some relationship development with it, but it's fanfiction. Dylan, have you used this trope at all? I know you've done some writing.
In writing terms, probably not enough, but what I have used it for is I always, whenever I am DMing a game, I always ask when it comes to, traveling to the tavern and being like, just like, how many rooms you get? let's see how that goes. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's always less rooms available at the inn than there are people in the party, aren't there?
Yep.
Yeah, and you can basically then using that. Basically, you go, okay, let's have some fun interactions here, guys. Let's go, and by doing that, you really can force some interesting relationships or build on relationships. You know, maybe the party awkwardly decides, oh, let's put the two who've not been getting along together. Let's put the warlock who has a contract with a devil in with the godly paladin. Well, let's see how that goes. Let's put the kleptomaniac rogue in with the mercenary who's very particular about his gold. We'll just see how it goes.
Let's put the impressionable young princess in the same room as the alluring foreign half-elf.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, what are you accusing me of here? But yeah, that's really what I would use it for. But yeah, I have considered using other places. It is in wrestling we have the term cheap pop. So if you want to get a crowd on side easily, you just say your local sport team is good, and that's what I kind of feel like here is like how to get over with your readers quickly that you support this ship. There's only one bed, and they got to interact in that bed somehow. But it's I feel like as a trope, it's one that I should use, and I do have opportunities in stuff I'm writing coming up, but also just in D&D in the future. What I should do is make it so you're too poor to get multiple rooms. Just extort your money out and be like, geez, sorry guys, that room, you can only get 2 rooms. I know there's 6 of you, but there's only 2 rooms, so you gotta figure that out on your own. I feel like that would be
Kai
good.
and Althea share a cell block.
Okay, let's calm down here. Yeah. Now to pivot a little bit, and well, I don't use it, but I do want to mention my favorite use, and this is more of a bed trope than there was only one bed, but it relates. So I'm a huge fan of the video game series Xenoblade Chronicles. And Xenoblade Chronicles 2 takes some of that more anime sort of storytelling, and it does the thing where a sleepwalking woman gets into bed with the protagonist, and the protagonist is like, huh? And then she's like, what are you doing in my bed? It's like, what? It's my bed. And hilarity ensues, and it's great. And the great thing is, in the prequel they then did, because in the original she says, I did it again. And in the prequel, what do they have her do? They have her do it for the first time. So it's great. You get that that double. 2 for the price of 1, Maya. It's great.
You know me, I love 2 for the price of 1.
A third one for the list.
As a writer, I very much enjoy getting more bang for my buck, especially because after more than a few thousand words, I kind of tend to tap out. And actually, kind of the mention of D&D earlier reminded me of something else, a comic I recently bought called Real Hero Shit. It's from Iron Spike Comics, I believe, which also has a good use of, and there was only one bed for some character development. And it is also, I suppose I should mention, probably a bit more of an adult comic. So, if that's not your thing, there you go. So, to kind of wrap up our discussion about this, how do we all feel about the trope overall? I mean, I think it's pretty clear how I feel.
So, as a trope, like I said, it's a great tool, something I would recommend if you're an inexperienced writer definitely, if you want to try and make a relationship work or start some sort of relationship working, it's something very effective. And by using that, you are forcing yourself to think of, okay, how does the character 1 react? How does character 2 react? What do other characters think? And that's what you should use these things for. Is to not progress, but make how do the characters react to the situation? Because that's mostly what situational tropes are used for. Is you've seen it before, and you go, okay, so that's how those 2 types of characters react to this situation. But what if I put my own 2 characters in? How would they react? And that's what I think. And I think it's a very useful one for beginners who are just starting writing, especially want to attack romance or shipping. I definitely think that it's one very useful. And we know that all you degenerates out there definitely use it. And by degenerates, you know who you are. You writers in the explicit and M-rated stories, you use this trope. We know.
Well, I've done at least one M-rated fic, so yes. I mean, it wasn't smart, but it was fun. That one was actually mostly crack. As we start to close out the episode, do we have anything in the mailbag, Ian?
No mail yet. So once again, I would like to encourage everyone who listens to us to leave us a review on whatever you use to catch our podcast. We would really appreciate that. If you have anything you want to share with us, send us an email at fanfictapes@gmail.com. Maya, I think we also have a Twitter, right?
Yes, we do. Our Twitter is, I just had this open, at Fanfiction Tapes. If you also tweet something like a prompt from one of our episodes, we do hashtag the Fanfiction Tapes for that. If you tweet with that, we'll probably see it. And if you've got like a story from one of our prompts, or even just something you'd like to be mentioned on episode, we'll see if we can fit it in if we like it.
Can I make a quick statement?
Go ahead.
Arcane fans, my name is Dylan, but don't. I'm a good. Maya can attest. I'm a good person. That's my statement.
If you're not in Arcane or in a couple of groups, that might not make much sense to you, but I think we might have to save that for an Arcane episode, or maybe an episode on OCs.
Okay.
Because that is quite the tale. For this episode, we have a prompt for you. Pick 2 of your favorite characters. Doesn't matter what media they're from. Pick a situation. The one that I was envisioning when I wrote this is they are flipping a house. But really, anything where there's a situation like this, where they might be forced to share just one bed, go for it. And they get snowed in. The rest, that's up to you.
All right, and this is our last episode in February, and here in the U.S., February is Black History Month, so we've been trying our best as a mostly white crew to shout out Black authors and creators. This week, I would like to encourage everyone who hasn't yet to go read N.K. Jemisin. She is a fantastic science fiction author, and her Broken Earth trilogy set a couple of records in Hugo Awards. She's won a Hugo Award 3 years in a row, and for each book in the trilogy, which are both firsts for the Hugos. And go read N.K. Jemisin.
Oh, I need to do that. I have been recommended that series over and over again, and then I forget and go back to reading my lesbian fan fiction.
That's your mood.
I need to do better with my literature consumption.
Yes, Maya, do better.
All right, I think that's all the time we have for this episode today. See you next month. I am and have been Maya.
I have been Dylan.
And I have been Ian. Till next time, bye.